Hello and welcome to Planner Unplugged, where we shine a light on the great work financial planners and advisors do and how clients can benefit from the services they provide. I'm going to allow my guests to introduce themselves today and give me a little bit of a background about their business and how they got into the world of financial planning. David, over to you.
Hi, Katie, and hello, everybody. I'm glad you've done it that way because this is an odd and different day for me. I started Navigator Financial Planning in 2004. First fee-based financial planning, financial planning practice in Northern Ireland, um, and. We sold that business in 2017 to the True Wealth Group, and that has subsequently been sold to Succession Wealth. We've been working our way through that, and as in from today, I no longer work for either Navigator Financial Planning or True Wealth Group. I work for Succession Wealth, and I was literally updating my LinkedIn page as we were waiting to start this meeting. So,
Hot off the press, David.
I beg your pardon?
Hot off the press.
A bit, yes. Well, I think it's sort of fairly generally known that it's been happening, but it's been an interesting process because in the journey with True Wealth Group and even with Navigator, we've acquired a few businesses along the way, and just to observe it from the lens of a bigger organization doing it, it's certainly a lot slicker. And there's a lot more having a bit of resource behind it to do it properly. I would say is a good thing. I would say it's a good thing as a being sold is better than it being a bit of seat of the pants, I would say.
Absolutely. So how did you get into the world of financial advice and planning in the first place, David?
As I would suspect more than 50% of the people that answer this question say by accident.
Yes. Yeah.
I was kind of between jobs. I was selling industrial chemicals for a living, having worked with my dad and for a few years and it not really working out. Somebody called me up who I knew from my family business and said, basically to sell me some life insurance. And I said, look, I literally am struggling to put food on the table this month, and I really don't need any more expenses. He says, sounds like you need to speak to my boss, and it was as simple as that. Had the conversation, liked what I saw. That was with Legal and General, Legal and General direct sales back in the day, and if that was probably as good an experience, as good an introduction as I could have had, because Legal and General, again, well resourced, brilliant training, both in terms of how to do the job, in terms of the technical stuff, and they very much encourage you to get educated, trained, get all the exams. At the time, my interestingly, I mean, my dad knows this, so I'm not really telling it again. So he tried to talk me out of it. He tried to get the family IFA to talk me out of it, and he phoned me up and said, your dad's asked me to do this. I said I would, so I'm doing what I'm told, but actually I can't. In all seriousness, I cannot in all good conscience talk you out of it because it's a great career. You should do it. You will want to be you will want to be an IFA. 2 years later, I ended up working for him at some point during my career and then decided, nah, there's better ways of doing this. A couple of people to credit through here. One of the first of whom is Nick Can. Late of the IFP, and he was the chap who basically came to Northern Ireland, spoke about the CFP, spoke about cash flow model fit. That's the way to do this.
Yeah.
And kind of tried to work out how to do that. I mean, bear in mind, this was 1999, long before anybody was doing fee-based stuff. Well, not before anybody was, before most people were. And that's kind of where the germ of the idea of Navigator came from.
Oh, excellent. As you said, probably about 50% of the people that you ask that question to will say stumbled into it, never intended to. I've come into financial services myself in a similar way, that never set out to do that. I've often felt that we could do with making it a bit more of a career of choice. And
well, I think that's absolutely. I completely agree. I completely agree, Katie. I completely agree. And actually, the younger generation. It is less of an accident. I'm talking about people of my generation. I'm not going to lump you in my generation. I suspect I'm a little bit older than you, but I think people of of the people that are coming through university, people in their 20s and 30s, not so much by accident. I mean, it's not even true. No, it's not even 100% true of people of my generation. I know, several people who it's all they've ever done, and one of them will come to in when we come to speak about my outside activities. It's all he's ever done. But the there we I've recruited people who straight from university, it's all they ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
I have gone into and schools are. I just don't think schools are and parents are aware enough about what we do. I mean, we listen. People go on about this a lot. We need financial education in schools. Of course we do. We
Yeah.
absolutely do. But the other thing we need education about is financial planning. And it is a great career. And I've done a couple of careers talks in local schools here and gone in and talked about it. And the kids, yeah, they're not kids, they're young adults. When you sit down and explain to them, look, you can make a real difference to people. Um, you can make as much money as an accountant or a barrister, and you probably won't have to work as hard. What's not to like? And they say, right, brilliant, let's do it. And it's true. And it is definitely true.
I think you're right in terms of that awareness, because, like you
Yeah.
said, some people are deciding that's great, that that's all that they want to do, and they're going into that. But I think there is that sort of thing of a lot of people just not understanding what a financial advisor is, or a planner,
They
what
don't.
they do, and how that goes about, and obviously, makes such a difference to people's lives.
We absolutely change lives. And there is no question about that. There is no question about that.
Yeah. What would your thoughts be on the sort of, we see a lot about the advice gap at the moment and various things like that. How do we go about solving that? There's no one answer. There's no one
There,
thing, I'd
there
imagine.
isn't. The advice gap is a bit of a problem. There is no question about it. I mean, there's some people doing fantastic work on this. Uh, Helena Wardle, I think, is doing an amazing job at Money Means, or she's in the process of doing an amazing job, basically getting AI to try and bridge this. Listen, um, I would rather that. I think I need to be careful what I say here. Um, I think the FCA have created a rod for their own back here, in that one of their purposes is to broaden the advice, broaden access
Yeah.
to financial services, to financial planning. But at the same time, they need to make it safer. Can I say if there's the FCA, if one thing would come out of this, it would be that the FCA would kite mark simple products. So, what harm can it do to sell somebody a life insurance policy? You can't really do any harm. Kite
Yeah.
mark it, make it make it go through the product and say, right, okay, we're not gonna overcharge for it. We're going to make sure it's safe. You can't really oversell it. Um, Same with ISIS. You could make ISIS kite, or you could kite mark ISIS, so no rubbish in it, no fancy, excuse me, no fancy structured products, simple, low cost, strategic asset allocation. What's not to like?
Yeah.
And how what harm can it do for somebody to put £100 a month into an ISA, and somebody doing that at 20? The difference it makes to their lives. They don't need to pay, somebody like me or somebody like one of my colleagues £1,000 or more to set this up. And the simple fact of the matter is, Katie, like, to open a file, to go through a comprehensive discovery meeting, to go through a risk profile analysis, all of which has been imposed upon us, all of which has been imposed on us for very, very good reasons, because of the legacy of horrendous advice in the past. It, it's a cost. Now, who's paying that cost? Ultimately, the client's paying the cost, and
Yeah.
it's meant that to open a file costs. Different firms will tell you different things. It costs hundreds, if not thousands, of pounds to open a file. And is that value for money for somebody doing £100 exit? No, it's not. So type our products, um, and then let people build their wealth up to a point at which they need us. So what they need me for, what they need my colleagues for, is coaching, planning, thinking, accountability, and that's what humans are brilliant at. AI's great at a lot of stuff, but it's not yet, and I'm not 100% sure that it will ever get to a point where humans will be done away with. AI will allow us to do our job more efficiently and more quickly, so that we can concentrate on the stuff that we're really, really good at, and it adds value to the client, and that we can get properly paid for.
Are you using technology within your business in terms of AI or anything like that at the moment?
Yes, but not as much as we should be.
Yeah. How are you sort of using it currently?
Yeah. So and my feet are not far enough under the table to answer that question properly. I do know they are using AI to record and take meeting notes and summarize those, which is brilliant. But there's so much more that this can do. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been using it a bit myself, to to do meeting notes. I don't like. I actually think it's cheating to get it to do blog posts. What I do use it for is maybe idea generation, and maybe checking some of the stuff I've done. So, like an awful lot of people, I'm quite wordy in my language when I write. So, okay, you've got 2 page, right? Give me a 1 page
Yeah.
summary of that, or turn that into a LinkedIn post. So stuff like that.
I think you're right in terms of that sort of more mundane admin tasks, things like that. But with advice, you always need that human element. Someone's coming to you for a particular reason, usually an important part of their life that they want to sort of have that reassurance from someone, I
So,
think.
so don't get me wrong. I think AI is really, really clever. So if it comes to advice, so excuse me. Let's say somebody comes and says, "Look, I've got a company, and I need to do £50,000 pension contribution, or we go through and it needs a £50,000 pension contribution, and it's a transaction." There is nothing that AI can't deal with in that. There really, really isn't.
Yeah.
It can do the risk profiling. I have my own views on that and how it might be able to help with that. We're not there yet, but there's ongoing conversation to be had. Um, but it can write the report, it can generate the forms, and it needs 5 minutes intervention from a planner. I would actually say an advisor rather than a planner. It doesn't need much human intervention. Where the planner comes from, because my view on this very much is the plan is not important. The planning process is incredibly important, and the planning process never stops. So I'll give you an example. Somebody came into me last week. He runs his own business. He's in his late 30s, and he's already bought and sold, owned and sorry, grown and sold a business. Um, and he business north, business south of the border, and he said, "How do we do this? First of all, I need to put £30,000 into my pension." All right, fine, we'll have a chat. And you sit him down, and he thinks he's putting £30,000 into a pension, and you start talking to him about it, and that's not what he wants to do at all.
Yeah.
It is not what he wants to do at all. It is to and I mean, I might as well just tell you, because it's so emblematic of what we do. What he wants to do is not have his family in the situation that his mother was in when his father died, or suddenly.
Yeah.
What he wants to do is build a future for himself and his family, enjoy life while he can, and in the meantime, if something happens to him, his wife and his kids have enough to go. That's what he wants to do. And when you sit down and chat with him for an hour and draw Paul Armstrong's bucket, and you say, "Oh, yeah, that is absolutely what I want. That is exactly what I need, and I need to be kept on track with it." That is planning. It is not a plan, and it isn't. I don't think AI is anywhere close to doing that properly.
I've recently been reading the book, actually, Paul's book about the buckets
Yeah.
and how that's sort of working. But you're so right in terms of, is there a tendency of that clients maybe say what they think the advisor or planner wants to hear? So
Of
it does
course.
need to be a bit more transactional, and really it's then sort of your job to get out of them what it is that, what their goals are, what their values are, what their aspirations are.
Completely. You go to a doctor with a sore throat. You have no idea what's wrong with you. You go to a
Yeah.
doctor with a headache. You have no idea what's wrong with you. The doctor will ask lots of questions, maybe do some tests, and tell you, right, this is what is wrong with you. This is what you're going to do. The pension contribution is a presenting symptom. Our job is to do diagnosis and a long-term course of treatment, and make sure that you keep on the course of treatment.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, no two clients are exactly the same, but what are some of the main things that they do come to you for? That sort of retirement planning, that journey. What is it that sort of is the things that they're dying to ask you and to find out about once you do get to know them a little bit better?
Okay, so Navigator became known for two things, and then I'm going to talk to you about what I'm interested in now, what I'm looking to do at Succession. So what we have done over the years is we used to work a lot and still do work a lot with clients who had serious personal injuries and had got compensation. We work with a lot with solicitors to set up trusts for them to make sure that their benefits are protected. And the benefits is part of it, but actually the main thing is to make sure that these people had enough money, that not almost certainly they did have enough money if they were properly compensated, but it's to give them the confidence that they had enough money to live a reasonable life. They've had a life-changing
Yeah,
thing happen to them. They've had a life-changing amount of money. And the problem with it is it's a life-changing amount of money that they have no comprehension of the magnitude of that money. They've all sorts of psychological and social issues coming at them that they haven't even dreamed of. And with an amount of money that they've never dreamed of. And all of a sudden, our job is to make sure that it lasts. Give them well, two sides of it. One, make sure it lasts. So don't go buying a Ferrari. I mean, that's a bit of extreme, but don't go buying this
freedoms though,
don't
wasn't it? The fear that people would.
well, yeah. Don't go buying a 6-bedroom house when you need a 2-bedroom bungalow because you're in a wheelchair. And you think that through. Make sure the cash flow model. The cash flow model is so key to people like this, to give them the sense of, look, this is going to be okay. But secondly, don't hoard it either. Spend it. This
Yeah,
money's for you. What is the point of you getting this amount of money and not making life at least a bit more bearable for you than it was? So those people we genuinely made a huge difference to those people. I could take you to people that uh, would basically, they had nowhere to turn, and they now have a pretty reasonable life because of the work that I and my colleagues did with them. And we genuinely made a difference, and that is really, really rewarding. The other thing that we did over the years was we worked a lot with owner managers of small and medium-sized businesses. And again, did we make a difference then? Yes, we did. Of course we did, because a lot of those people are working all hours that God sends. They are not seeing their families. And in this, I'm not the only person that works in this space. I'm definitely not. And there's a lot of people a lot better at it than me because they're probably better business people than me. But what again you're helping people to do is to see the business is not an end in itself. The business is a means to an end. It is a way of generating an income. It's generating a capital event. It is making you. What is the point of having this if you don't get to see your family and your wife divorces you after 5 years because she's fed up with it? What's the point?
yeah,
And help them to see that it is a means. What do you really want to do? Like my new client, he does work really, really hard, but he recognizes that it's not sustainable.
yeah,
So those are the two groups of people that historically we've worked with, and I've really enjoyed it because you can make a difference. Um, in terms of sort of broad strategy, yeah, I quite like pensions, but what I really like is inheritance tax planning, and it kind of flows out of the trust thing. They call it inheritance tax planning, but it's really estate planning. It's how do we move the money on to the next generation, and I find it a lot of fun. What I've really got dug into, and I've got really passionate over the last 7 to 10 years, is responsible investing. And to your point, this is becoming, well, I think it's massively important, but actually, once you start talking to clients about it, they think it's massively important as well. And we as a profession, I believe, are letting clients down on it.
So what would you feel needs to be done differently so we can improve that situation for clients coming forward?
Yeah. So some of this is, not everybody agrees with me. Let's face it, not everybody agrees that climate change is a problem. They don't. Well, you're wrong, but I accept that there is another view that is shared by 1% of the scientific community. But let's go with the fact that we might be wrong. But I guess you'll have heard of Pascal's wager. Have you?
No, actually, I've sort of nodded there and then realised, no,
No.
I
So
might need
Pascal's
to explain that.
so there's a bit of deep theology going on here. So Pascal was a sort of early modern or late Renaissance French philosopher, and his view was that does God exist? And his wager was, well, I'm not 100% sure, but I'd rather believe that he was and it not be true than believe that he wasn't and it was true.
Yeah,
So there's a variation of that when it comes to climate change. What if we behave as if climate change doesn't exist and it turns out to be? All
yeah,
right. But in the other way, if we
yeah,
behave, well, what harm is there in behaving as if it does exist
yeah,
and change our behavior accordingly? The world is going to be a better place anyway if we
absolutely.
do that.
Yeah, that sort of legacy that we
So,
leave for the generations coming behind as well.
well, exactly. So let's start there. But as planners and as financial, this is uh, for the industry generally. It applies to fund managers. It applies to compliance people. It applies to us as planners. I think we're letting everybody down. Now, the FCA and the SDRs, the Sustainable Disclosure Regulations, are helping with the fund management. You cannot lie now. You have to prove that what you're saying is true about this. But so let's focus on what I can control. I can control how I behave with clients. So I think there's issues with fact finding. I think we're terrible at fact finding this. We're either we're patronizing people one way or
Mm,
another. We're saying to them, "Oh, look, you really don't want one of these wishy-washy green portfolios because it's going to underperform. You don't want one of those, do you?" Or we're saying, "You don't want to kill polar bears, do you?" You know,
yeah,
yeah, no,
yes,
a bit of an extreme in both directions, but that's the sort of thing that happens, and neither is a happy outcome. It's not good. So I don't think we're asking the question very well. We're terrible at evidencing it, what the clients answer. But if you do ask clients these questions, and the FCA did a report on this about 18 months ago, and over 80% of clients, if given the opportunity, would prefer to invest in a portfolio that at least didn't do harm.
yeah,
And what's going to happen, Katie, is that in 4 or 5 years' time, as this whole market develops, because people don't know that it's even possible, 4 or 5 years' time, they're going to find out that this was possible and that we didn't ask them, we didn't offer them, and there's going to be a breakdown in trust yet again.
yeah,
So we need to be honest, which we're not being. That's a really strong statement. I will qualify it, and we need to be transparent. I don't think the honesty thing it's not deliberate. We just don't know. We need when we're sitting down doing a cash flow model with somebody, and we're saying to them, look, we're going to use above real growth figures for your plan based on the evidence of the last whatever number of years, and that's the number of decades. Well, if the global temperatures go up as they're predicted to do, GDP is not going to be what it is. You're not going to get those figures.
mm,
If we don't do something about it, you're not going to be able. These numbers that I'm showing you are not work. They're not going to work now. So that honesty cuts both directions. Um, so basically, it is a way of getting clients to think about investing. That I'll come back to the. Is there any point in a wee second? The other one is transparency, and that's where the SDRs come in. And what needs to be made crystal clear to clients that by changing how they invest, if you invest in this portfolio, Mr. Client, rather than this one, I can show you that It is not connected with this, that, and the other, and it's never going to be 100% clean. It's better than where it was. Are you making a difference? You're not personally making a difference, and this is where the transparency and honesty things comes in. But here's the thing: it takes 25 people in a stadium to get a Mexican wave going.
Yes, yeah. You have to start
Okay,
somewhere.
you have to start somewhere. Um, there's a gentleman who runs a sustainable fund management company called Web, WHEB, George Latham. And George is at Liverpool support. I love this story. And he was at Anfield the day that Liverpool won the Premier League.
Wow. Good day to be there.
And his, well, absolutely. And his point was this. He says, if I didn't sing You'll Never Walk Alone, nobody would have noticed.
Yeah.
But there comes a point when people do. Now, interesting, the next day, the BBC actually, it was the next day after I spoke to him, weeks after the event. When the final whistle blew, the reaction at Anfield was measurable on seismometers.
Wow.
That's the difference that a large group of people can make. We need to change the way everybody thinks about this.
Yeah. I think you're right about that sort of trust and transparency. It's been a big thing with the profession and financial services industry more widely. And obviously, we're wanting to get more people to invest in the first place. We need to start having those open and honest discussions, really, and sort of finding out what matters to clients. So there will be something. But I think, again, you're right, that framing of the question. I think back to the pandemic, if you said to someone, would you like to, are you prepared to lose 20% of your salary? Okay, but what about if you still keep 80% of it and still have a job? It's that sort of framing sometimes of you're asking the same thing, but you've flipped the numbers round effectively.
It's framing is a really good way to put it.
Yeah. Okay, then. So that's a few things that we could sort of do there. In terms of those newer people coming into the profession, what advice would you give to them if they were saying, yep, I would love to pursue a career in financial planning and advice? What advice would you give?
Do it. Would be to start with. It's interesting. The people you speak to, a lot of people would say, and including in our profession, would you encourage your children to go into your profession? And I talk to solicitors, you talk to doctors, they would say, no, I'm not sure about that. My son is a financial planner, and I encouraged him to become a financial planner. And I would have no difficulty with recommending anybody be a financial planner. I think it has a future for the right people. People that have got integrity, people that are bright, that they can communicate. There is a future, and you, as we just earlier discussed, you can change people's lives. So first of all, do it. Secondly, do the education. Get on and get it done as quickly as you can. And I've said to all the young planners, get yourself to chartered. Just do it, and don't give me any excuses. I did chartered when I had 3 small children. I did it. When I was getting changed and getting dressed in the morning. Okay, maybe I have a slightly different memory than most people, but that's how you do this. You just have to get through and get it done. Now, chartered doesn't make you or a good or a bad planner, but it's kind of the table stakes now. Do that one. Also do CFP, Certified Financial Planner, because that does genuinely turn you into a proper financial planner. Go and meet the people that have done it before. Go and seek them out. I sought. I'm not making much of me, but I went and sought out the Nick Cans. I went and sought out the Marlene Outrims. I went and sought out the Ian Shipways. I went and sought out the John Baxters, the people that I know and trust, and that were at the forefront of the profession. These are people who will take your call.
Yes, yeah, it's really important.
I'm not anybody, but I mean, if people phone me up and say, "Can talk to me?" I will take your call. People will take your call.
Yeah.
Don't waste their time, but people want to help. So, a couple of things. The client always comes first. Do not ever do something for cash flow reasons or whatever that leaves the client worse off, or it doesn't leave the client better off. The client always comes first, no matter what. Even though we don't technically have a fiduciary responsibility that they do in the States here, you do. The client is first on every possible occasion. Trying to think of anything else there. No, that would, if you did those things, always do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
As you could write that over probably most of it.
And for anyone that doesn't necessarily have a financial planner but is considering it, what advice would you give to them in terms of how they should go about it? Because I think sometimes it's then, where do I start? Maybe how I feel like I need to do something, but I don't know. Do I earn enough? Am I wealthy enough? All of those sort of things that go through people's minds.
You'll be wealthy enough for somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, I could stand here and I could sit here and say we'll talk to succession wealth, because we've got we've got a proposition for just about everybody. Um, we'll direct you in the right direction. But look, the key point, I think it was reasonably obvious from the early point of this conversation that this is not about the products. This is about the people. Find somebody you like. Find somebody you trust. If you're not going to sit down and with somebody and have a coffee or a beer with them, you're not going to take their advice
Yeah.
long term. When the rubber meets the road and you've done something stupid, and your planner is telling you you've done something stupid and you're not going to take it from them, there's no point.
Yeah.
So it needs to be with somebody you like. Ask around, talk to a few people that talk to people that do have financial planners. We get most of our business from referrals. I don't really put myself out there asking for referrals. Let me caveat that a bit. So we work with accountants and solicitors, and we absolutely do ask them to. That's very much a professional connection. It's very much they know what we're looking for. They know what we do, and they trust what we do because we've been working with them for many years. But we've a couple of I've had a couple of clients that I've been working for decades, literally. They send me 2 or 3 clients a year. They say, look, you should be working with David or David and his team or whoever, um, just because there's somebody that is actually there's a consultant, a surgical consultant here who falls into that camp, and over the years, he's somebody we've worked with. How long have we worked with him? 23, 24 years. And he's not a stupid guy, and a lot of the stuff he has done, he could have done himself. But it's obvious from anybody look that he's got his stuff together. So people say to him, "Well, what did you do?" And he says, "I spoke to David." And we get a couple of calls a year from consultants,
Yeah.
from colleagues.
There we go. That word of mouth, very, very important.
Totally,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. Are there any, I think we've all made mistakes along the way. Are there any sort of financial mistakes that you made earlier on that people could learn from? And also, what is the sort of personal money rule that you'd live by?
Um, Been very fortunate. I mean, I really don't do regrets, Katie. So, are there things I could have done differently? Probably work. I could sit here and say I could have worked a bit harder. Um, Not really. So I'll maybe rephrase that. What would I do differently if I was starting again? Let me rephrase it that way. If I was starting Navigator again, I would employ an operations manager day one, so that I only do what only you can do.
Yeah.
So get somebody to fix the photocopier, to do the FCA returns, to fill in the PI application, to get the branding sorted out in the office. So operations manager day one, and we were very fortunate to have Frank Nolan, who came a list of qualifications, the length of his arm, and I said to the recruiter, "There's no way is he going to work for us." He said, "Joe, he absolutely is. He's mad keen for the job." Why? Because he lives around the corner from you, and he's looking for a part-time job, and he's a sailor like you are. And kind of the rest is history. He's worked for us for 10 years.
Yeah.
We've never had a crossword in our lives. He's been absolutely brilliant, and it's just really, really worked. The other one, I would employ a PA day one. So those are my two best investments. They the planner, the operations manager, and the PA to again organize the travel, make my appointments. And Harriet has become our client services manager.
Yeah.
She had no financial services qualifications. She's got a bit now, but it's not important. She takes the calls. She has puts the appointments in the diary. She knows when the cat has died. She knows when the grandchildren's born more than I do.
Yeah.
And the relationship is with the team. So those are the two things that that I would do. Personal stuff that I live by. No, lots of stuff, but let's just go with one business one. If you can't take a fortnight, if you can't take 3 weeks off your business, you're not a business. You're employed.
Yeah, there we go. And for anyone else out there, in terms of like what they could be doing with their money, what would be sort of a bit of advice that you'd give them to start them on their journey if they haven't already?
Just do it. The earlier you start, the sooner you start, the quicker it'll grow. I mean, there's some fantastic numbers around this. So when my first granddaughter was born, I knew this, but I redid the numbers. And she, let me do it from numbers that I know off the top of my head. If somebody starts investing in a pension at 20 and stops at 30, okay, so let's
Yeah.
say 100 quid a month, 100 quid a month. I don't work it out, but these are the rough numbers. If you start putting 100 quid a month into a pension at 20 and stop at 30, in order to get the same amount of money at 60, you would have to start at 30 and contribute double the amount of money than you would from 10 to 20. Magic of compound interest. By the way, Einstein didn't say it was the eighth wonder of the world, but he's alleged to, and it actually is the eighth wonder of the world.
Exactly. We'll take it anyway, regardless. Yeah. Anything else from you, David? Anything else going on in the personal life that's worth us knowing about?
Yeah. So the other person that I want to give a massive shout out to, who, by the way, has been in financial services all his entire working life, is Phil Billingham. He's become a very, very good friend of mine. He was our compliance consultant for quite a few years, but he's a personal friend, and he and Shannon and my wife Gail and I have been doing quite a bit of work together with Ukrainian refugees since 2022. And I want to pay tribute to Phil, who got me started on that journey. He went to Krakow. He went to Przemyśl in Poland within, I think, 3 weeks of the war starting. We went to Krakow a couple of weeks later. We've been in Moldova together. We've been in Odessa. We, this is not about us. This is about our community, our financial planning community. Between the jigs and the reels, between sort of the start of 2022, the invasion of 2022, and spring 23, managed to raise £100,000, all of which went to refugee support refugees in from Ukraine, mostly in Moldova and elsewhere. Phil and Shannon and I are going back to Lviv at the end of this month. We're driving a truck out there, and if anybody's interested, go on Phil's LinkedIn or my LinkedIn, and you'll see a place to contribute. With what we're doing is we're taking a rescue vehicle out, in effect an ambulance, that to bring injured troops back from the front line, and we need not just the money to buy the truck. We've got that. Thank you very much for everybody that's contributed. But the more we get, these vehicles are under attack all the time, and it is possible to buy technology to do jamming technology, and if that doesn't work, nets to protect them. So look, if anybody wants to help, we'd be very glad of it. Actually, ping me on LinkedIn if you can't see the link, or ping Phil. All contributions gratefully received. So we've done that, and I think that's probably the thing that I've been happiest with the last week in terms of what we've done.
I think it puts a lot of things into perspective, doesn't it? Really, how we live our lives, just generally, and what's going on in the world around us.
Yeah, and listen, I do a lot of sailing. I do a lot of different things, and we were actually sailing last week. We started an initiative called Blue Water Thinking. There's a guy, a planner down the south coast of England called Sebastian Elwell, who started this, and it's basically taken 3 or 4 people interested in responsible investing and changing the financial system out for a day in the water, thinking about this stuff, and captive audience. Let's generate some ideas. And we did the first one, and he says, "Do an Irish one." So I did an Irish one. We did the first event last Friday, and we had a really, really good chat, and came away with some cracking ideas and some good ideas for blog posts. But listen, the interesting thing about this, and it's the same with talking to people from Africa about ESG and sustainable stuff. I met with a group of African South Africans working on this sort of stuff, and I got on my hobby horse about climate change, and they said, "Look, we agree with you. However, it's quite difficult to get a South African who is struggling to put food on the table to worry too much about the the
Yeah.
Maldives disappearing."
Yeah.
So in different parts of the world, some of these issues might be more focusing on the S, where we focus on the E, and that's very much the case in Ukraine. And let's face it, Gaza and Israel and Iran and all of those places, they're all places that all of this stuff is this stuff is existential to them.
Yeah, absolutely. David, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck with the new role within Succession. I look
Thank you
forward to
very
seeing
much.
how that
Enjoyed the
goes.
chat. Yeah.
And no, me too, very much so. So well, thanks everyone for listening as well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.